Thank you very much for honor. Thank you very much, Paul, for being here. I want to thank God. I want to thank God for you coming in my life, and I thank you for this interview. And tell your mom and dad I love them. Okay, my bro.
I
Now
always
you
ask about you, man. I always ask about you. Thank you, champ.
okay? Let's start this interview. My first time doing Zoom. Hey, Paul. Let's start from the beginning. Kind of from the beginning. Before you started writing, what were you doing before?
I've done a few things. I wasn't actually very good at school, believe it or not. I failed English language about 3, 4 times, and mathematics. I was just never really good at that. I went into the catering industry. I was started off sort of waiting, and then sort of ended up getting into managing sort of coffee shops, restaurants. Um, and then through a twist of fate, while I was looking to do another job. My family went down sick. My mum, my dad, and my brother. It was the only family I got in this country, and all three of them ended up sick, hospitalised. So I stopped what I was doing and went back, and we had a little bed and breakfast, and basically kind of took the running of that over. It's only a tiny small place. So, but during that time, I raised some money for cancer research and a few other things, and I thought, you know what, if I get the opportunity to maybe continue with doing something in the charity world, I'd like to do that. And about a year later, I started off working as a corporate fundraiser in a charity called Missing People, and then became head of fundraising there. And then about 3.5 years into that, the opportunity to become business development director for the Down Syndrome Association happened, and I did 10 years. And then I started writing. I'd always sort of doing a little bit of writing here
No.
and there, but probably around the early 2000s, I remember having a go at writing, and
No.
I managed to speak to this really top author. I won't say who he is, but big author. And I remember saying to him, "Hey, I've got this silly little
Breaking up,
idea. I
huh?
write some boxing articles," and
Breaking up.
and I said, "Oh, can you hear me? You hear me, champ?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. So
Okay.
yeah, so I spoke to this top sort of author, and said that I had an idea of writing some articles, and I said, I'm thinking about maybe getting a small book together. And he said, listen, it's a really complex business. Don't worry about it. And he kind of like pissed on my flames, to be honest. And I left that idea for about 8 or 9 years. Then what happened was one day I was eating at this little Italian restaurant near where I lived at the time in southwest London, and there's a guy there who ran a paper called the Daily Sport, and he knew I was going off to see a fight in Denmark. Mikhail Kessler, he was fighting Alan Green for the WBC light heavyweight silver title, and he knew I was going out there, and he said, oh, I know you enjoy doing your writing casually. I know you're going out to the boxing. Any chance you could write a few lines for me? And I went, yeah, okay. So I did a few lines for the Daily Sport website, and he published it, and I was absolutely over the moon. And we had a little chat, and he said, if you want to do this more regularly, I said, I'd absolutely love to. He gave me the opportunity. Grant Miller, lovely guy. And I ended up by doing that for about 3-4 years with him. But during that time, I also decided to start a book. Now, here's the thing. I knew a guy called Mark Tibbs, former professional boxer, and his dad, Jimmy Tibbs, I knew had a very interesting life, had served prison time and sparred with Muhammad Ali, was interviewed by the Cray brothers when he was younger. It was a massive story. And on top of that, he trained so many world champions, including current day Billy Joe Saunders. And anyway, I went along and I sent an email to Mark saying, I wonder if your dad would ever have his book done. He said, listen, he's been approached by publishers all around the world and he's always got cold feet. He said, but maybe you could be the guy. So I went, okay. So he said, meet my dad on Monday at the gym. So I went and met him. And after 3 hours of being grilled by Jimmy, I had no energy left. I went, Jimmy, listen, if you want to do this book, I don't mind, but here's my details. I'd love to be able to do it, but I don't want to, I feel like I'm forcing you a bit. And he stood up in his thick East End London accent and he said, Paul, let's start this on Friday. I thought, great. So I've walked out the door and I've gone about 300-400 meters down the road. I've stopped and I thought, right, let's get this into perspective. You've agreed to write this guy's book. You've never written a book before. How long is a book supposed to be? How does it get published? How do you put together a book? I walked forward a little bit more and I thought, oh shit, you've got a full-time job. You're going to need to take time off. you haven't asked for that. And I walked a bit further and I thought, you can do this. With absolutely everything against me, I thought, you can do this. So I went into work the day after, spoke to my boss, because I was the number 2 in the organization. And I said to her, I need a 4-month sabbatical. She said, to do what? I said, write a book. She said, what's it about? I said, a boxing criminal. And she said, what do you know about book writing and boxers and criminals? I said, absolutely nothing at all. And she said, you want a sabbatical to do that? I went, yeah. So that was it. So long story short, I came back from sabbatical, I handed my notice without even have a publisher. And then about 2 weeks before the end of my handing period, I got a phone call from publishers and said, we'd like to do a book. Long story short, it became a #1 bestseller, and it kicked off Mike Tyson from the #1 spot for about a year. So everything worked out. And then down the line, about 5-6 years later, I get an email from a guy called John Maresca. Never heard of the guy in my life. And he says, I've got a good friend of mine. He says he wants to have his book written. He said, when you got him on the phone, he said, you'll fall in love with him. I said, what's his name? He said, Paul Banke. The rest is history.
Hey, you know, Paul, I love the story. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, we know, right? You're breaking up a little because, of course, you're in London, England, or the United Kingdom. So we understand. Everybody knows the technology. It freezes a little bit. So I missed a couple of things. Listen, Paul, I love that story. I love that story. Paul, listen. Another thing, you know, for you being a book, how many books you have out there? How many books do you have?
I'm just finishing number 10 at the moment.
Paul, you know what? Like you said, with you being a book writer, that must be hard. You know, I mean, to jump into something, and God, that must be. I mean, like you went for it, and it's like you trained for it, but you just jumped into it, right? It's hard.
Yeah, I jumped into the water. I didn't know how deep it was. I didn't know how fast the current was. I'll be honest. I mean, I approached about 40 publishers, and 39 said no. And the funny thing is that the one that took me on was Europe's biggest sports publisher. They were like the real big boys. I remember going to meet a publisher once in North London, and I just knew when the guy turned up and he was wearing a pair of chinos, a white shirt, and a blue V-neck jumper, that this guy couldn't even spell boxing, never mind know anything about it. You know, golf maybe was his thing, and that was it. And we sat down, and I looked, and I started going through the book, and he said, I'm just not sure if it's, you know, my thing. And I said, well, I've got the forwards done by Barry McGuigan, former world champion. And he went, never heard of him. And I was like, please tell me you've heard of Muhammad Ali. He said, yeah, that name I do know. I was thinking, hallelujah. So it was hard to try and get people who understood boxing. Right. And but the publisher who took me on, they'd never done a boxing book in their life. It had always been about football, but they liked something they saw my writing. They said, it's really raw, it needs tidying, but we see the enthusiasm and we got a feeling you're going to make it a good book. And that was it. That's all I needed. That's all the encouragement I needed. And I bust my ass to make it work.
Hey, Paul, you know what? I'm going to say that's awesome too. Let me tell you, let me say again, it must be awesome. I don't know how it feels, but you do, to share somebody's life story or share somebody's story or a crisis they went through or whatever, the life story. That must be awesome to put it on paper. Because you of course you read their brains, you got to pick their brains, you got to 24/7 be on the phone with them and ask them this. That must be awesome. They didn't put them in a book. They made a book of them. That's gotta be a great feeling to share the story, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's you know yourself, because we took a year of chatting every other day, spending time looking at each other, going through turbulent times, good times, and to make a big book. And there's one thing, when all's said and done, in 100 years from now, we're all going to be dead and buried, and no longer on the planet. We're going to just be dust. But one thing is for sure: 50, 100, 200, 500 years from now, the story of Paul Banke will still be there. You've made your mark, and I'm very lucky that my name is attached to that. And no matter what happens to me as well, a piece of me will always be around as well. So writing books is a magical thing. I go around to prisons and I talk about the power of creative reading and writing. And when I go around, they ask me, what's your latest book? And last year, when I was going to the prisons, I was saying, Paul Banke, and they were like, tell us his story. And they were like, wow, and that's the thing. No matter what happens, your life story's out there. People are always going to be able to read it, and it's inspirational. I get approached many times every week for people asking me to write their life story, and my rule is that if their life isn't more exciting than mine, which is not that exciting, then I'm not going to do it. So every book I've done has had to have something which has made me go, wow. And yours did that. Your life did that. And that's it. But it's also, I can't just write a book because someone's got a good life story. I've got to get on with the person. It's like a marriage, you know, you're spending a lot of time chatting with these people. And if you don't get on with them and they're like rude or they're just nasty or something, oh man, I'll just drop them. I'll let them know really quickly. And that's it, that I can't work with them. But me and you, like, you know, like the other sort of clients, well, me and you from the get go, we laughed, you know, we went through some heavy periods of your life. But we also spoke when we weren't doing the book, and that's, you know, that showed the friendship, you know.
I still bug you, Paul. You know, my next question was about the prison thing. My next question was that because when you shared that story with me about the prison, how you said, "Man, Paul, I'm gonna go in there," and these guys are hardcore homies, they're hardcore guys, and how you gonna come in and get these guys and the way you go ahead, tell me the story, the way you share. You walked in there and you want their attention, and it's gonna be hard because you're in a different. It's a different world. It's a different world. Go ahead, share.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first time I went into the prison, the first thing that struck me was the number of doors in there. The number of times you hear a door clunk behind you and a key turn and clunk and another door and another door. Because it sounds silly, but as we walked in there, I was playing almost a little game in the back of my head, which was trying to remember how many doors you're going through and how many lefts and rights you're doing, as if you were going to escape. Well, I'll tell you what, that plan went to shit straight away because after about clunk number 25, my brain had frazzled. And we'd only gone maybe about 150 meters. There was a lot more clunks to go. So, but as you're walking past people, you catch a glimpse with some people for like a microsecond, and I wonder what's going on in their head. You know, what they're doing, what they're occupying themselves as, what they're thinking about. You know, whether they're thinking about time, whether they're thinking about how they're going to keep themselves occupied today, whether they're worrying about someone outside. So when I go into the whichever room I'm going to go and talk, it could be a library, it could be in a gym, whatever it may be, it could be in a faith center, and I've got anywhere between 10 to 60 people in front of me. I've got their undivided attention, minimum of 1 hour up to 3 hours, depends how much the prisoner's allocated in time. But let's say it's 3 hour session. So I sit there and I look at all the guys and I say, listen, you know, I explain who I am, and I say, you know, I've got my, unfortunately, you've got me for the next 3 hours, and I'm going to try and make this as fun as possible. And then the first question I ask them is, who knows the difference between a noun, a verb, an adjective, and an adverb? And you see them all looking away, thinking, we've got to listen to this shit for the next 3 hours. And so I look around, and you sometimes get one arm that goes up, and I say, okay. I said, well, good for you. I said, because I have no idea what any of those words mean. I said, me personally, I know that I can put words together well and make them sound good. And if you can speak, that means those words can come out and they can go on paper. So we can all do stories. So they say to me, no, man, I can't write a story. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to prove to all of you in under half an hour that we can all write a story. So what I do is I do something called word association. I start off with a word which might be, say, green, and then someone says grass, and then grass, someone might say weed, and then someone might say smoke, someone might say fire, etc., etc. And so you get 10 words together, and I write them on a clipboard, and I give them all a paper and pen, and I say, you've got 5 minutes to use all 10 of those words and make a mini story. Doesn't matter what order they're in, what the story is, just pull them all together and do something. And that's it. And everyone does it. Some write it in a poem, some rap it, some sing it, some just write a mini story, and that's it. And I say to them, I proved it. You can all write. You all got the writer in you. And so I'm not saying you need to become writers. I said, you know, when you leave here, but being able to coordinate your thoughts and put them on paper every day might help you to get your thoughts together in terms of moving forward positively. And that is very important. Then the last exercise I do with them towards the end of the session, I do what's called the sliding doors exercise, like the film Gwyneth Paltrow. In the film, Gwyneth, she's about to get the subway, and she's got a choice of one train, and if she gets it, she goes somewhere. Her life pans out in one way, but if she gets a train 2 minutes later, her life pans out in another way. And it's the same with these guys. I tell them, on the day that you got arrested, what could you have done that was different? So if, for example, you stole a car. Let's say, for example, you robbed a bank. Let's say whatever it is. what could you have done different on that day? And the answer is made a different decision to not make you do that. So my last exercise to them is I want you to write what you're going to do when you come out of prison, the second you come out of the gates. And I give them a few little feeders like change the geography you live in, change the people who are bad influences, get rid of your bad vices, etc., etc. Things that you've gone through yourself, champ, in your own life naturally. And so I give them about 20 minutes of that exercise, and I get them to read it out to everyone. They share all their thoughts, and there's some powerful, powerful stuff in there, especially from people who thought they could never write. And the best bit is when I go back some months later, and there's still a few of the same prisoners, and they say, you know what? I'm still adding to my script every day, and I read it every day to give me the confidence to know that whenever I come out of here, whether it's in 6 months, 2 years, whenever, I've got something, I've got a plan prepared for me, as opposed to just telling everyone else telling me what to do. I've got a positive plan myself.
That's tough. Hey, Paul, I like that. Let me, Paul, after you left, when the class was over, did they one by one come talk to you, or ask you something?
So what I do is I finish it about 10 minutes early so that I can sort of speak to people and they can tell me stuff. And I'll tell you what, that again is very powerful. I remember once there was this guy, so there was, you've got people from all races, all backgrounds, etc. And there's one big, massive sort of muscle guy, and he was saying he was writing. He showed me his stuff, and it wasn't bad. But then the guy sitting next to him was a skinny guy called Michael, and he was the one sitting there with the attitude, like, sitting down on the seat and didn't want to speak much. But when he started to write, when he wrote the short story, I was like, wow. I said, you told me you can't write. He says, I'm a bit illiterate. He says, I can't spell properly and stuff. I said, doesn't matter. I said, what you've got here shows that all you need to do is learn the language. And I said, and you're going to be good. At the very end, in those last 10 minutes, when he did his big piece, he came up to me and he said, he said, I actually love it. Because at the beginning, he said, no, I don't like writing at all. I don't. He said, listen, man, he says, I've got to be honest. I absolutely love writing. I'd love to do more of it. But inside, if you show that you like writing, he says, that can be seen as a sign of weakness. He said, today, in here, you made it feel like something of strength. And he says, and I'm not going to back down on that. He says, I'm going to keep building on it. And that, for me, I thought, wow, I've managed to make a difference today. And I can go in front of a couple of hundred prisoners and sometimes hit base with maybe 3 or 4. But for me, that is a huge result. Even one is just fantastic,
Right. Oh no, I believe that. I felt good for that one too. Hey, Paul. I know you. Let's get on a different stuff. Now, I know I like that. I like that previous story you told me before, and I loved it. I love listening to it. Listen, Paul. So now you write for magazines. You write for smarter people, right?
Yeah, so I always remember I was writing for Daily Sport originally, and then I went on to Boxing Monthly magazine, which is a worldwide publication. But unfortunately, when coronavirus hit, the magazine ceased trading after 37 years, which was a real shame. So, but I started writing for a few other people. Hannibal Boxing, based in Boston, Massachusetts. Another company called Boxing Social recently. British Vintage Boxing. It's a boxing clothing company. And a little secret that I'll let you into, Ring Magazine. I've written a piece for Ring Magazine. I got in contact, and they accepted a piece for me, and it's going to be coming out in January, in the January magazine. So I'm delighted with that. The oldest, probably the best magazine on the planet, and I've got the chance to write for them now.
Yeah. And I see you done some interviews before, and I call you a couple times. Hey, Paul, I ask for your advice all the time. You know what I'm saying? And you're boxing. You talk to Legs Lewis. You talk to who else?
Anthony Joshua, Larry Holmes.
That's a bust. I'm
Paul
big fan of
Banke.
Anthony Joshua, Mikey Garcia. You talk to a lot of
Mikey.
people.
Mikey Garcia is because of you, champ. Mikey Garcia because of you.
And Teresa Toppin too. John Toppin's story.
Now listen, let's be real here, champ. Because of your book, I mean, I interviewed about, I don't know, a good 50, 60 people for your book. And, I interviewed Ray Mancini, and he wouldn't have spoken to me if it wasn't because I said that, it was for your book. And the second I said it was for your book, he gave a fantastic interview, which made up, which gave me the dialogue for the forward. Robert Garcia, Mikey Garcia, Ruben Castillo, oh my goodness, Zach Padilla,
Paul Baden.
Paul Vaden, and what about the IBF featherweight champion? He lost a whole load at the beginning. He fought you in the early days, and then became world champion like 10 years later.
You talking about you talked to him? You talking about Hector Zaraga?
Hector Lizarraga, yes.
Oh, you talk. He's in a book too.
Yeah, no. But I interviewed him for your book, and
I didn't know that.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
and that was a great, that was interesting itself. But all these people I wouldn't have spoken to if it wasn't for you. I mean, most of it was sort of dialogue for your book, but I then got to speak to them afterwards and do interviews with them. So it's a small world, and one thing that a lot of people can get from speaking with yourself, speaking with Paul Banke is a great experience because you push out a lot of love. You live by the motto of it's nice to be nice, and you're nice to everybody, and that comes back to you after a while. That's a good thing.
I appreciate it. Listen, Paul, I always do, like I told Mike Garcia, I do short interviews, but this I want to do this. The Zoom could be longer, but this is new for me. I'm gonna go with John Stanton next. Josh. So Olga, you help me out, my sister. I appreciate Olga. You gotta tell Olga thank you. Thank you.
Olga, thank you. We love Olga.
Oh, yeah. No problem. Anytime. It was great. I really enjoy your stories. And I think you also need to talk to students to motivate them as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to approach the English department at my school and see if there will be, if they're interested in doing an interview with you, because, we have a lot of those tough kids that they don't want to be seen as smart or they can write because, they're tough. But they need to be motivated as well to come out and write.
Yeah, the pen is mightier than the sword. It's an old phrase, but it's very, very, very true. And I've interviewed some of the toughest people on the planet, and when they've reflected and actually gone through the interview and just gone through the dialogue, it's acted as a cleansing process. I mean, me and Paul Banke, the champ, it was quite a liberating process for Paul to actually talk through a lot of the stuff, and writing his book also helped him reconnect with a lot of people as well, and he was able to get a lot of skeletons out of the cupboard. And in the same way, writing can help do that as well, because it's all to do with methods of expression. And sometimes if we say things face to face, you don't get the time to think about an answer correctly, and you say the wrong thing, and it's digested by the person in front of you in a certain way. But with the power of speech, you got the chance now on email to write something, have a look at it, go back, write it properly, tune it up, and then send it. And you can send the most powerful words. It's a very underrated art. And at the moment, everyone's a writer, in essence, and everyone's a video producer and whatever else. But there's some really good ones out there. I'm not banding myself in there at all, but I am saying that the only way I have improved in my own micro circle is by practice, listening to all advice that's been given to me, and always having a rookie attitude. Never, ever, ever think that you've hit the peak. If you do, that's the time to retire, because you think you've got nothing more to offer. I remember I used to do karate years ago, and I remember when I got my black belt, my karate instructor said to me, "Paul, your learning starts today." And I thought, what? After all these years, today? You kidding? And it took me a while to understand properly, but it was basically saying never lose a rookie attitude. So it's very powerful stuff. But thanks, Olga, for facilitating. Sure. Really appreciate it.
Paul, by you being vulnerable, by you writing and giving a chance to different athletes in sports, you're also helping them to improve themselves, because it's a way of therapy for them when they are getting all that, like you said, you call them skeletons. It is like a therapy for them to go back and revive that and get it out of their system. And I see it with Paul, that he says, I opened the book and it was not a very good part that he opened in his life. He put it down, but he is able to cope with it because it's here and he's able to move on. So,
no, absolutely. It's a very liberating process for the person. It's kind of cathartic, so you're getting a lot of stuff off your chest, and a lot of things that we normally sort of wouldn't discuss. And with me, it's always important that, you know, me and the champ, we did it all on video calls. I need to see the expression in the face. So if you just hear someone on the phone, we can all be great actors. So I could ask you a question and I could say something like, so tell me about the time you robbed the bank. And straight afterwards, you know, were you nervous? And you could just on the phone go, ah, it was all cool. It was nothing wrong. But if I see you in front of me and go, nah, it was fine. I see the big breath, I see the eyes go off, and I make a note to myself, which is come back to that question in a different way, open the door a bit slower, and we'll get the full answer there. And that was it. And it's like, you know, the champ knows that. I'd come back to him 5 times on the same thing until I got what I needed to hear. And he gave me gave me it good. And you know, things like when he got arrested for Grand Theft Auto, that first story was kind of like, well, you know, I got in trouble and I kind of got arrested, and then this happened. I was like, yeah, we need to slow this right down and bring it 5 times backwards, you know. And we did.
Yeah.
And it took a few sessions. But he, you know, he was always fantastic and very eager to tell me the stories, you know. I mean, not many people will start a book by saying they were lying in a dumpster eating a half-eaten kid's cheeseburger looking up at the sky. It takes a lot of guts to be able to put that level of detail in the story. But for people who are down in the dumps themselves, literally in life and maybe physically in a dump, that gives them hope. It gives them inspiration to say, this guy was at the peak and he fell a long way and he came back up again in life. So if he can do it, I can do it.
That's right. And we thank you for that.
I'm good, sir. I think we're good, Paul. But listen, Paul. You know what? I'm like I
Thank
do
you,
short
Paul.
interviews, Paul. I love you, bro. I'm very new to this, Paul. I appreciate my first. Are we still video recording?
Yes.
Okay, Paul. I love you, Paul. Tell your mom and dad I love them to death. You know
I will do, man.
you're the best, Paul. To share my life story is a blessing. You know, I'm 56 years old, and thank God I got met you in my life. Olga, you know I bug you a lot, Olga. I bug Paul a lot. He's out there in the United Kingdom. I called him twice this morning, left a message. So, you know, I bug people a lot. Paul knows I'm a
That's
crazy.
okay.
Paul's like, damn, dude, I've done wrong with your book about a couple months ago. You still call me. So I have a phone problem, Paul. So I love you. You know that, Paul.
Like he said, it's like a marriage, right? You two are married. You have a book. So
That's
you
it.
have a baby, Paul. You have a baby. So,
Paul,
yeah.
how many books you got all together? Tell me, Paul, 7, 10. How many?
No, about it. I've just finished number 10.
Nice.
Okay.
Congratulations. And that's so
no,
inspiring, you know, and kids need to do that. All those little process that you said, like, oh, a little, you know, like, oh, I don't want to answer, go back to that. Those are little tips that kids, like my kids, you know, when they're writing something and they don't like, oh, but I don't know what to say, you know, just focus on the little things and then expand them. And
Well, the other thing that, because when you're in a room full of people, especially children, they can be a bit harder to prize out. Especially no one wants to look cool. No one wants to look uncool by talking to the adult and getting in conversation with them. So when you sort of say, oh, what's your favorite, you know, sort of like things, and then people are like, nothing's favorite. And you'll be like, okay. So, you know, everything is, you know, uncool and that's it. But what I do is like, even with the guys in prison. Hello, sir.
Danny, good morning. Hey, good morning.
How are you? What's up?
Good morning. I'm good, sir.
It's my
Yourself?
husband, Danny. I don't know if you met him before.
What's up,
I'm
Paul?
having a nice pleasure to meet you. I'm Paul.
Paul.
Nice to meet you.
Hey,
We're both Pauls.
He's the writer.
Yeah.
2
Are you
Pauls.
gonna take a picture, Paul? Paul? No.
I can't get all 3 of you guys together. Put all 3 together.
Okay, hold on. Let's see. I'm
There you
figuring
go.
this out.
Here you go. I got it.
Oh, hold on.
I got it. Wait, one more time.
Hold on. One more time. Hold on. Oh, no.
Ah.
I need to do it.
Exit.
There.
I don't see Paul.
Paul, move in a little more. There.
Got it? You froze.
I thought you took it.
Oh, I thought you took it.
Oh my gosh.
There you go.
Okay, Danny can take it. Let's see.
There you go. Got it.
You got it?
Hey, Paul, you know what, man? Paul, let me say real quick. I know we're still doing video recording. You know what, Paul, like I said, I already said this already, but to share somebody's story must be
I'll be right back.
must be awesome. Must be awesome feeling to share somebody's story. When you're doing this story, every story is different, and every story is different in a lot of ways. It's probably therapy for you, but then again, you go, God, man, you guys, make it, you know, man, whatever problems you have, or you probably got my shit, ain't, everybody has problems in their life. You know what I'm saying? But every story is different. It must be it gotta be therapy or something for you, right? It makes you think
I
different.
so when I'm the ghostwriter, and this is the thing that I tell the people in prison, especially when they're behind bars for years. Some of them, I mean, I've spoken to some people, 23 years, have been multiple murders or something. And there's some which are just in for maybe a little bit of silly drug abuse, and they've been in for like a few months, and they'll be out soon. But I say to them, being able to read something enables you to transcend the walls. You can hover over that. When you're reading, you can become that person. When you're writing, you can do the same thing. So when I write, I can become Usain Bolt. I can be Usain Bolt having lunch with Elvis Presley, Frank Sinatra, Mike Tyson, and Paul Banke. Why? Because I'm in charge of the pen. I can write anything I want. And that's the power of writing. You can be as creative as you want. You can be the big star. You can be the fastest person, the strongest, the nicest, whatever you want to do. And coming back to what I was saying to Olga before about when you're trying to get the attention of a group of kids who don't think it's cool, the first thing I say to the prisoners when I can see that I'm struggling to get their attention is, some of them say, well, I don't want to write a book. I go, cool. What about an article? They're like, well, maybe I don't want to write an article. I said, okay. I said, what interest have you got? So I remember one guy said to him, what interest have you got? And he said, baseball. And I was like, okay. So what else? He said, well, to be honest, basketball is my big interest. I went, okay. I said, what about if I said I could get you an interview with Michael Jordan? He went, oh, stop messing about. I said, my theory every time I've done a boxing interview is if the person has a heartbeat and they're still alive on the planet, somehow, some way, you can get a hold of them. And if you put the time, the effort, and determination in to track that person down, to do an interview with them, then my goodness, what a satisfaction to have afterwards. So whatever the passion is, whether it be music, whether it be sport, whether it be whatever it is, and there's someone who you absolutely adore and you put them on a pedestal, write about them, do a 500-word article, whatever it may be. Now, it may be you do it in the second person or you actually interview them, and that becomes the project. Trust me, people's eyes light up as they start to think, they're alive on the planet, I can get a hold of them. Yes, you can. Absolutely. That's how I do it.
Nice. That's very good approach. Very good approach.
I love that.
Just,
Listen, guys, I appreciate this, Paul. It's
imagination.
gonna open doors for me now. I got so many people I want to do. Jesse J. Vega. I got Mark Brilliant. I got Josh Dempsey. I want Jerry Cosis. I want Mark Brilliant from New York. Then I hope I get Wilder. I'm gonna go like you just said right now. If you never know, it opens doors.
You never
You
know.
go for it, Dan. You go for it. You're doing well. Every time you're doing an interview, you're getting better. When you first started doing them, you were talking at machine gun speed. Now you slowed it down, and you're like a professional presenter. You're doing really good.
Yes.
So practice makes perfect. Keep on doing it, champ. It's like the first time you walked into the Azusa Boxing Club, and you started throwing punches. They weren't perfect, but you knew they were good and they were going somewhere. It's the same with this. The first one wasn't perfect, but you're getting better and better.
Paul, before we go, last thing on. Thank you. The Leo Santa Cruz fight. I saw him on YouTube right now. What Leo's happy. He's all right. He's comfortable. It is what it is. He's cool with it. And you want, what did you think, Paul? It was tough, huh? I saw Michael.
I'll be honest. I mean, so Leo Santa Cruz, he's a little bit past his not a sell by date, but past his best. And Leo Santa Cruz, from say when he fought Carl Frampton, or even a bit before then, that's probably when he was at his best. He had much faster footwork than he currently does. And to be honest, against Gervonta Davis, it was a fairly even fight up to that point. I mean, yeah, he was getting tagged, but he was also tagging Davis. And I'll tell you what, Gervonta Davis is not a ghost. He's not like Muhammad Ali. He can be tagged. He can be punched. And Leo Santa Cruz did that, and he did catch him on a number of occasions. I mean, to be honest, the final knockout, the final uppercut, what happened was Davis was computing what Leo Santa Cruz was doing. He caught him with a left hook. The first one he blocked. The second one he caught. The third one he ducked, bang, went in with the left uppercut, and that was it. The old Leo Santa Cruz wouldn't have been on the ropes throwing the same shot 3 times over. He'd have hit, moved, and he'd have been in the middle of the ring getting all that space back. But Davis is up and coming. He's a good fighter. He's obviously had problems with his weight issues in the past, but if he's on point, he's an intelligent fighter. He can bang. I think there's some great fights up ahead for him. I mean, it could be maybe a 130 him, Lomachenko. It's a very tasty division at the moment. So I'm not sure if Leo Santa Cruz will come back and get a world title. I think I actually predicted, didn't I, between round 6 and 9 when we did the
Yeah, you
video.
did, you finished it.
So
Yeah.
I should have put a bet on that. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think Leo Santa Cruz as a person is an absolutely lovely guy. And whenever he retires from boxing, it would be a travesty if he doesn't stay in boxing in some capacity, whether it be managing, promoting, training people, because he's got so much to give. He's a lovely, lovely man.
They have a restaurant too. They have a restaurant, a little Santa Cruz restaurant. I went to a bar.
Cool.
there.
Well, when I come over, we're going to go to his place. We're going to hit him up.
Okay. Listen, my brother. Love you guys. Paul, my sister.
Thanks a lot, Sam.
She's
Thanks for the
new,
opportunity.
she's new to box fest. She's my sister in box fest sister. She don't know, but she's gonna be helping me do these interviews.
That's right. Anytime. Yes, we are getting better at this. So, and you know, I'm recording everything because you never know. Maybe there's something else that I can kind of, you know, put together later on.
So we're gonna post it. Paul, love you, my brother. Thank you. Olga.
Take care, Sam. Thank you, Olga.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.